The fun thing about these videos is that I can be more direct and honest than some other creators or other channels who need to maintain relationships with watch brands. I'm not gonna be a jerk about it, but as we go through the year in watches so far, I'll point out what works and what could be better. And I encourage y'all to voice your own pros and cons in the comments. We're more than halfway through the year and there's a lot of ground to cover. So perhaps the best way to approach this massive topic is to think about the themes that we see emerging in 2024. We'll start with tool watches, and the question that comes to mind is it better to be boring? This year in tool watches has been defined by what we did and did not get. In terms of what we did get, I'll put it this way. The good watches are not that surprising, and the surprising watches are not that good. Before we get to the good, let's talk about the bad and the ugly. The denim Pateks and the gold brick from Rolex were surprising because why would they do that? For Patek, I could see the denim colored dials catching on, but the straps feel like a misguided design choice, like a middle-aged guy wearing skinny jeans. You're better than that. The Deep Sea, which is 44 millimeters wide by nearly 18 millimeters thick, seems like it was made for the headlines, and that's it. I can't imagine Rolex producing more than 10 of these, right? Now on to the good, but not so surprising watches. The Tudor Black Bay Monochrome is a solid watch, and it sings on the 5-link bracelet with the T-Fit clasp. I bet it has more staying power than the new Tudor GMT. Some people are calling the monochrome a reincarnation of the Submariner, which is high praise. The Rolex GMT in monochrome got a flatter reception. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not the red and black Coach GMT that was so highly anticipated. There's really no color on this one at all. This pair of monochrome releases illustrates how the public expectations are different for Rolex versus Tudor. Rolex has so much to prove with every release, and there are as many haters as there are fans. Tudor seems to have more leeway with their releases. They can play it safe or they can take a risk, and it feels like, at least for now, people are generally gonna like it. Tudor is the younger brother brand to Rolex, and the younger siblings always get away with more. The White Dial Speedmaster is another good watch coming out of 2024, but it's certainly not that surprising. I mean, this seems like a watch that would already exist, right? For Speedy fans, it's a hit, and for everyone else, it feels like no harm done. This all begs the question, is boring better? What do you think? This is not to say that there have been zero surprises. And speaking of monochrome, here's a watch that's gray, but also not. The new Resonance Type 5L diver is subdued in daylight, but turn the lights out, and the watch comes alive with a fully loomed dial. We've seen fully loomed dials before from Bulgari, Zodiac, and others. Actually, now that we're on the subject, IWC recently released a fully loomed watch. We're talking about case, dial, strap, everything. The case is made from a proprietary material called Ceruloom, which, as the name suggests, is a blend of ceramic and superluminova. It creates this fully saturated glow, and even if it's not for you, it's cool that the brand essentially crafted a watch out of lume. So boring is safe, and safe is good, but good isn't great. There's one more watch that isn't boring, but I can't decide if it's great or not. We're jumping back to Tudor and ending with the Tudor Black Bay Chrono Pink. People who like it call it the Flamingo. It is a collaboration with Inter Miami after all. And people who don't like it call it the Pepto. The dial color is the shock factor here, but what I think Tudor should have changed instead is the thickness of the case. Otherwise, this is basically putting lipstick on a pig. Okay, that phrasing was a bit harsh. The point is that the watch is still too bulky to be comfortable on the wrist. And that brings us to another theme emerging in 2024. Wearability is becoming more of a priority for brands, thank God. We're seeing thinner cases, more micro adjustment clasps, and more titanium. This certainly seems to be the material of the year. Titanium is a notoriously difficult material to work with. Carving it is tough, and polishing it is even tougher. And yet it's everywhere this year. This probably has less to do with technological breakthroughs and more to do with consumer demand. Yes, titanium is lighter, but it's also more scratch resistant. This is great for summer because you don't have that weight on your wrist when you're already drained from the heat. And without long sleeves for protection, your watch is going to encounter more scratchable scenarios. The Laureata Chrono in grade 5 titanium is a sleeper hit. It's a chronograph that packs a lot of details without the bulk. You could say the same about the Zenith Chronomaster Sport. The steel versions feel a little too close to a Daytona, so the titanium element helps the watch stand apart. Vacheron added a blue dial titanium overseas tourbillon, which would make one hell of a daily driver. Chopard almost nailed it with their skeletonized Alpine Eagle. It's a good idea that could have used more investment in the movement finishing. The fully loomed resonance diver that we mentioned earlier is also titanium. And speaking of divers, the Blancpain 50 Fathoms is now in titanium, which is great for a watch that's more than 42 millimeters wide and more than 14 millimeters thick. And finally, there was talk, there were rumors, there was anticipation for a titanium Rolex Submariner, but we'll have to keep waiting for that one. 2024 has been a big year for shaped watches from brands large and small. Cartier, the brand most known for shapes, is having a major year in the vintage market. I think we've already seen peak excitement for the crash, and all that attention is spreading out to other case shapes like the Pebble, the Coussin, and the Sèche, to name a few. And we can't talk about Cartier shapes without mentioning the new Tortue Monopoussoir. This is a revival of the much-loved monopusher from the CPCP collection, and even the Cartier purists seem to be warmly embracing this new release. And they can be a difficult bunch. I say that lovingly, by the way. On the micro-brand front, we saw successful launches from Toledano and Chan with their B1 and from Anoma with their A1. Funny coincidence there with the names, but great watches nonetheless, and more affordably priced than you might expect. The Toledano and Chan sold out quickly at $4,000, and the Anoma also filled their pre-order period with a price tag of around $1,700 US. While many micro-brands try to make a slightly different field watch or diver or chronograph, these ventured into much more experimental territory. One shaped watch that had a cooler reception was the Audemars Piguet Remaster 02. This watch is based on the rare 5159BA from 1960 and comes in a new sand gold alloy and a larger size of 41 millimeters. The inspiration for this watch is pretty Lover 8, and I happen to love it. I also see potential in AP's sand gold alloy. However, AP went too far in modernizing the case size, and that side-by-side shows just how big of a jump it was. We talked about the A1 and the B1 being less expensive than they could have been. I mean, it feels like every limited release sells out with ease, so why not name your price? But thankfully, they're far from the only deals coming out in 2024. Watch collecting is often a rich man or rich woman's game, but it doesn't have to be. Longines expanded their Conquest line into new sizes and new dial colors. If I only wanted one watch and only wanted to spend a couple $1,000s, this is where I would go. Raymond Weil, of all brands, Raymond Weil is killing it with their Millesime and Millesime Moonphase. These are watches that look more expensive than they are, and if you took the name off the dial, I guess they cost more than their roughly $2,000 price tag. Love them or not, the Moonswatch is expanding into a more mature color palette. The murdered out all black model and the desert editions are doing it for me, I'll admit. Also, I almost bought one of the new Unimatic Modella Cinques. It's a very cool dial that looks like it has lume, but it doesn't. So I almost bought one, but I didn't. Finally, the Datsa Sub 200 is an actually compact diver at 39 millimeters wide by 10.7 millimeters thick and only 41.5 millimeters lug to lug. Finding any diver less than 47 millimeters lug to lug is a challenge, so this is a godsend if you have a moderately sized wrist and want a real deal diver that still fits. And now the award for Best Watch of the Year goes to, I'm sorry, I'm terrible at accents. We covered a lot of themes for 2024, but maybe the best watch doesn't neatly fall into a theme. I mean, the IWC Eternal Calendar just won a Guinness World Record for its moon phase, which is accurate for the next 45 million years. Vacheron gave the people what they wanted with a lineup of green and gold overseas. The Laurent Ferrier Classic Moon is killer. Lange is being Lange as always. I don't hate the Platinum 1908. And JLC casually launched a Duometro Helio Tourbillon Perpetual. All this to say, the vote for the watch of the year so far is up to you. Fight it out in the comments. I'll see you guys next time.